Yeah, you can move
Okay,
forward.
all right.
Thank
Out
you.
to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and my wife loved that.
Are we all good?
We're good.
Item 5.1, we now reconvene into public session. Time is 4:07. Item 6.1, report out of closed session.
No report this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Item 7.1, recess. The board president will gosh, I'm sorry. The board president will recess the meeting to conduct a regular board meeting of Paris Union High School District.
You see all the people in the audience judging you?
Yes.
So they're not there.
Yes.
All right. It's all right. Just take a breath. We're good.
Oh, go back. Oh, no, I was right.
That's it. Then, yeah, close the meeting.
So I'm
When
gonna
you
end
open it
meeting
back
right
up,
here?
you Jump to 8.1.
So end the meeting now?
End meeting, yeah.
No item is presently being discussed. Because we're recessed.
Roll call for the regular meeting. Did you get it?
Getting it now.
All right.
All right, please join the meeting
The regular?
of the regular board meeting, yes.
Regular.
And then I go to,
Oh, that was, I just joined the wrong one, I did the wrong one. I did it wrong.
And we're synced.
okay, so 2.1.
You're synced too, so we'll catch up.
Are we all good?
We are all on.
I called the,
Who?
No?
No?
Join the meeting?
Ours say sync, so,
Yeah.
no, it says unsynced here. So I hit sync?
yeah, hit sync on yours.
No, it says synced.
Right. Try going to the next item and let's see if everybody else follows you. Yeah, we're good. Huh?
Yeah, but,
There you go. Now you're on. It's a little slow, but yeah, it's happening.
yeah, but I'm calling to order. Item 2.1, call to order of the Paris Union High School District Board meeting at 4:09. Am I? Might be, okay. Item 3.1, invitation to address the Board of Trustees.
No cards submitted.
Thank you. Item 4.1, adjourn to closed session.
Some of them.
Mr. Nielsen and Mr. Stafford. Any discussion? No. Please vote. All right, I'm gonna go to closed session at 4:10. We are now reconvening the regular board meeting. Yeah, I'm getting confused. Regular board meeting at 5:34 PM. Item 8.1 is revision, adoption, ordering of agenda, April 17, 2019. Oops, my bad. All right. 8.1, revision, adoption of ordering of agenda, April 17, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Stafford, Mr. Nelson. Any discussion? No discussion?
No discussion.
Please vote. Item 8.1 is a 5-0 vote. Item 9.1, report out of closed session.
No report this evening.
Thank you, sir. Item 9.2, district update by the superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Garcia. The first thing I would like to do is introduce one of our students from Heritage High School, Samantha Galvan. Could you stand up at the mic there, Samantha? They don't even know why they're clapping for you yet, but Samantha is a recipient of a $40,000 scholarship from Southern California Edison. I believe you're going to UCLA, right? Yes.
Congratulations. Samantha. You say away.
And a week or so ago, we were able to go over to Heritage, and we surprised her with the Edison people and the film crew there, and her mom was there, and got to come into her band classroom and let her know that she was a recipient of this great scholarship. So we're really proud of you, Samantha, and we wish you all the best of luck at UCLA.
Thank you. Thank you.
On March 22nd, the Paris Union High School District All-Stars won the People's Choice Award at the Menifee Community Cupboard again on the karaoke night. I think that's 9 years in a row or something like that. Pardon me? Our Paris Union High School District All-Stars karaoke team. There's you can go on YouTube and find it, I think. Well, it had to be a 60s song, so we selected, what did we end up selecting? Oh, Be True to Your School by the Beach Boys. Be True to Your School by the Beach Boys. Oh, Hector was in there too. Hector joined me in the, it was Paloma Valley Administrator, Miss Tomasian and Miss Hall were in there. Who else did we have, Hector?
We had
Carrie Bobbitt was in there, and Claire and Allison King, and Mark Sinnott, or Jonathan Sinnott. Jonathan Sinnott. So it was a fun night. We raised our district raised about $2,500 for the Menifee Community Cupboard to help feed the families that are less fortunate.
I thought Hector was going to say, I can do that, the demo at the end of the meeting, so we can clear the room in 2 seconds.
I'll do it, but I didn't bring my guitar.
Okay, next time.
And if Hector and I did sing, we would clear the room in a hurry. We were excited about the 4 board members that were able to attend the NSBA conference in Philadelphia. We're sorry Mr. Garcia couldn't make it, but next year you'll be there. On April 5th, we attended the BEST Awards, which is Bilingual Educators Succeeding Together at the Riverside Convention Center. A student from CMI earned a scholarship for the essay they had written, and he shared the essay to the whole audience, part of the essay. We had a teacher honored there, Miss McCurry from Heritage High School, paraeducator Luis Garcia from Paris High School, support person Sonia Riscala from the SSC, a parent Rosa Guerrero from Heritage High School, and the student that won the award was Aaron Leva from CMI. He won a $1,000 scholarship.
Mr. President, do I have your permission to interrupt the superintendent?
You know what, of course.
We also had, because you were there, we also had Mr. Grant Bennett was awarded as the Administrator of the Year.
That's right. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you.
Wouldn't say that.
That's not on my list.
I'll be in trouble later.
A week ago, Monday, Joe Williams and I attended the AXA Leg Action Day in Sacramento in an effort to influence our local assembly members and state senators on issues related to education. So we were up there, we got to meet with some of our elected officials and their aides. This past Saturday, we held our 9th annual Puma Golf Tournament to raise money for scholarships we give out to students graduating from our schools only. We had a record 108 golfers play that day, so it was a fun event. Beautiful day out there on the golf course. Board member Nellison came out and joined us out there on the course, so it was a fun night. The Western Riverside County Association of School Managers Award were held on April 10th at Harrison Hall, and Xochitl Trujillo was recognized as Confidential Employee of the Year, and Chris Cooper was recognized as High School Assistant Principal of the Year by the organization. So we're proud of them, and on, what day is that? May 3rd, the AXA Region 19 will be honoring Kirk Skorpanich as Human Resource Administrator of the Year for the county. That's on May 1st, not May 3rd. I had my banquets mixed up. And right now the kids are on spring break, so that's why there's only, Samantha's the only one here this evening. The other students are on break, so they're not here this evening. Hopefully they're getting some relaxation and getting ready for the last few weeks of school. And that'll conclude my report for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Miss Samantha, you're more than welcome to stay, but if you would like, you're more than welcome to leave too. You and your family, of course. We're not going to hold you hostage. Thank you and congratulations. Uh-huh. All right, item 9.3, CSEA President Josh Rushing.
President Garcia, Superintendent Bennett, Board, Cabinet, thank you for letting me speak tonight. Thankfully, it's been a pretty smooth last month or two. I know last month I wasn't able to attend, but I sent my email, kind of wanted to thank the board for their support and Cabinet for their support of sending 22 paraeducators to the CSCA Paraeducator Conference. I know a lot of the other districts were jealous of the amount of support we have from our district. So hopefully we can keep that going this next year. It's going to be in Ontario, so I will start planning for that next couple months. The other thing I wanted to bring up was we are one of 10 chapters in the state that was awarded with the ACE program, which is the Appreciating Classified Employees program. Hopefully we'll be able to work pretty soon on scheduling it and kind of see how it all works. Basically, I refer to it as a boxing day where they invite board members, cabinet members, admin, everybody to kind of shadow a classified employee in whatever job they want to pick. So hopefully that'll come up around CSCA week, which is, I believe, May 19th. Yeah. And I think that's all I got. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item, 9.4, PSEA President Vicki Mueller. She's on break. Lucky. Item 9.5, comments by the Board of Trustees. Dr. Arau?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, yes. At this time, since I'm not seeing teachers here, Ms. Vicky Mueller, and so I want to make that comment the next month. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I have a comment in terms of related to our certificated staff or classified certificated or teachers. Just to say thank you to Mr. Bennett and for the opportunity to attend the National School Board Association. It was great. We had the opportunity to get a lot of great ideas that we are going to be sharing with you, and specific ideas that they can be that they can transfer to our students, and also a lot of informations and ideas that they can benefit us as a board members to do a better job. And one thing something that I learned that is, I can say that's the main thing, and the biggest one is, for several years I had been talking about data and about the information and about the numbers and how we are doing for our students. And something really important is that we need to focus on something that they call actionable data. So we need to look not only at the data, but what are we going to do with that data? And how that is going to have implications for our students and for our staff, also for our stakeholders, for the parents, because it's not good just to have the data for the sake of saying, look, we have all this data. We have those numbers, now so what? What is next? And I have a lot more information that I need to look into that, to do the research. I have a lot of links that I need to be checking, and I think that is something very powerful that I hope is going to translate into the benefit of our students. So thank you for that opportunity to attend that conference.
Mr. Nelson?
I would also like to say I went to NSBA in Philadelphia, and got a lot of good ideas as well. And thank the district for sending us as well. I also wanted to thank everybody involved in the golf challenge that we had on, and the golf tournament we had on Saturday. My group only came in 5 under, a legitimate 5 under. Some of those cheating groups had like a negative 16 or something like that. It was, yeah, sure, Art. We'll see one of the only honest groups right there. But I really appreciated the day to get out there and have some fun and raise some money for the scholarships for the students.
Mr. Freeman?
Thank you, Mr. President. I also attended the NSBA conference in Philadelphia and came out with a lot of good information. I thought it was extremely important for the board to attend, to participate in that. Also, this last weekend we had 4 students from Paloma Valley 2 young men representing the boys water polo team and 2 young ladies representing the girls water team made a campus visit to a college in Arizona where they were all offered scholarships to play water polo at that school. Now, it's a small school. I think it's called Ottawa University, which it made me think of Canada, not Arizona. But they were all offered scholarships. I think that would be an amazing thing to have 4 young people. Now, they all did and put in their applications, but then they're also not sure if they would get accepted. I said, well, you know, I don't see any real problem with that. Yeah, one of the girls was my daughter, Sarah. And then followed up by Monday evening at the Knott's Berry Farm Hotel, there was a CIF banquet where, among other things, my daughter Sarah received award patch for being third team all CIF in water polo. Finally, this afternoon, I got a text message from my wife that Sarah did a great job in the swim meet they had today, and that the boys and girls water teams, or swim teams from Paloma, both won the league championship.
Mr. Stafford?
I just wanted to thank some of our hardworking staff, Director Fritz and the M&O department. Thank you for having me to your training today for the custodial training at Heritage High School. Heritage High School looked really good today, and I've seen some changes there and look great. You know, they're getting ahead on some of the things we're facing, and I really felt that the staff, as far as our custodians, were involved, and they really felt appreciated, and they had a great day, and it was nice to see them enjoy that day. And thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate that. I did attend NSBA also, and that was kind of a different sort of traveling experience for me. But also, our Deputy Superintendent, Mrs. Rains, she attended, and Mr. Skorpanich were there at the training today. And thank you for the support, because it's really a division I care a lot about. So thank you so much. Okay, that's all. That's all.
Well, I don't have as much to say as everyone else, but I want to say thank you all to each and every one of you in every role that you all play, including Cabinet and Mr. Bennett. I know we all have our own daily struggles in our own personal lives, and yet we're here for everybody. We're servicing the community, and that brings so much pride and joy to my heart when I see how happy and successful we all are because of where we're putting our hearts, you know, we're putting everything into it. I also want to thank ahead of time our maintenance department for sure, because graduations are coming, and I know you're going to be out there sweating, putting a lot of hard work in advance. We don't always get to tell you thank you, but thank you. You guys do a phenomenal job, and I know it's going to be nothing less than phenomenal. So thank you ahead of time. Moving on. Item 10.1, invitation to address the Board of Trustees, agendized and non-agendized items.
We have none this evening, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Okay? Okay. Item 11.1, consent calendar, approval of the consent calendar items. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Dr. Rao? Oh. Mr. Nelson, any discussion? Please vote. Yes, I did. All right, 11.1 consent calendar is 5-0 vote. Item 12.1 is the information item, Heritage High School Professional Learning Community Update.
Yes, President Garcia and the board, this is something that we want to do this year is provide updates from the field in regards to teachers. I know we've been spending a lot of money with Solution Tree for professional learning communities, and so we wanted to bring in some of our teachers from specific school sites in regards that have attended the training and also the work that they're doing at their school site. So we wanted to start this particular round with Heritage High School, and so with that, I'll hand it over to the principal, Principal Van Rensburg. She'll kick us off. Tejeda.
It's
I'm
legal,
so
Tejeda.
sorry. I'm so sorry.
Thank you for putting me on
I'm in
blast,
trouble
Dr. Newman.
now.
I appreciate that during spring
I won't
break.
get over that one. I owe you a lot.
Well, you won't hear about what's going to happen, but we'll talk later. I'm telling you right now. Good evening, President Garcia, board members, cabinet. Thank you so much for inviting us this evening. I realize that I am not only blessed to be the principal of Heritage High School, but to have a team that likes to hang out with me during breaks. They were with me during the February break. We all went to Arizona together for the PLC conference. And so we're sharing our vision and where we want Heritage to move. So where we are and where we want to go. With disaggregating data, professional learning communities, holding teachers accountable, but also the administration accountable, because we're a team and collectively, at the end of the day, we work for our students, and when they make great gains, we make great gains as well. So we're going to have some conversation. So we had the opportunity to take 10, oh, I have a clicker, wow. 10 staff members, so it was the entire administrative team. Counselor, special education counselor, and teachers attended the 3-day conference in February in Arizona, and it was important to me to get movers and shakers along so that we were all on the same page, moving together with a common goal. We adopted Mr. Tom Ashley, who was solo, and so he's at the front. He was there when Heritage opened, and he can always hang out with us. We'll take him. But it was a great opportunity. It was a great team-building opportunity, so we met every morning for breakfast, and then we had lunch as a team, and we were able to discuss what we learned and how we were going to put it into action. And so currently we will be planning next week all of the professional learning communities, the topics that we're going to have with Fidelity, as well as what we learned here is with the Guiding Coalition and what strategies we can use with our teachers for the Guiding Coalition. And so Ms. Markham will begin.
Hi, good evening. So one of the biggest takeaways that we had from the conference was building our professional learning communities and incorporating all of our staff members, all of our teachers. So Ms. Tejeda has talked about including paraprofessionals next year and really talking, and we've already had special ed teachers coming into our department meetings. So I'm the English department chair. We have the teachers, the special ed teachers who are teaching English also coming to our departments. And in the past, it's been kind of different, and it hasn't been bad, but one of the things that we took away from this conference was how do we get everyone involved and how do we make it a whole campus kind of meetings instead of just like these individual groups that meet together. And obviously we have time for that still, but creating and sustaining that school culture that is doing what's best for kids. So that was one of the big things that we talked about.
All right, so I'm Sierra Torres, and I am the art department chair at Heritage. And I'm going to talk to you about the effective and meaningful grading that we learned about when we were there. So kind of changing the way we look at grading to make sure that it's never punitive to our students. And it really did open my eyes to where I thought I was doing a really good, fair job of grading. You know, I have my rubrics and all of that, and I think we all really feel strongly about being fair in our grading. And it kind of changed my ideas on what I was doing. So basically that the grading should be agreed upon by the teams, consistent and fair all the time, never punitive, of course, and that they need to be effectively communicated to all of the stakeholders. So, yeah.
We're just gonna go back and forth. So we talked a lot about data-driven instruction. We do have, and Dr. Rouse said that as far as our data, we have a lot of data. We have a ton of data. We've had a ton of data, you know, since we have so much technology and all that accessible to us. It's really deciding how we're going to analyze it and use it for student achievement. And so we had some kind of key takeaways from the conference, but a big thing is data leads and coaches, and that's something that we're seeing and we hired for already, or we are hiring for at our site to kind of work with that data and show us what to do with it. Because it is hard when you have a bunch of individual teachers. We have this data. We have Mondays, we have Fridays. What do we do with that? So we're really looking towards next year having a lot more data-driven instruction, and then kind of more feedback for you all with where we are and where we plan on going with what we're doing and with the numbers that we have. So hopefully, you'll see some more stuff from us next year with that.
And if I can jump in, we, part of our SIPSA, we have a release period for a professional development lead. The professional development lead will have a release period, and they will be able to run data, math, English, discipline, attendance, and see where the holes are and what we need to do to make sure our kids are getting to school, they're getting the support they need, and how we can support teachers as well. Because I think a lot of times we focus so much on the students that we forget that we also have to support our teachers in the process. So that's where the professional development lead, as well as the coach, the math coach, will come in. And strategize together, not just with the administrative team, but with the department leads and in PLCs and collab time, so that together we can move in the same direction. Along with that is we will be implementing Math 360 walls, which are whiteboards and our math support classes, so that the teaching is not at the desk anymore. Students are getting up and they'll be in the whiteboards around the classroom working on math, and we can raise our scores, and it's immediate feedback for the teacher and for the students. And so the students can no longer skate by looking at what their neighbor is doing, but they have to stand up, and they can use each other for support. So that's the direction we're going in as well, and that's where the data-driven instruction is going to take us, to not only support students, but to support teachers as well. We rock, paper, scissors, it didn't work.
Right. Okay, so for the other benefits of the PLC training that we went to is learning about special ed and regular ed outcomes. And like Ms. Markham was talking about, having those people on our team, so it's not just they meet in their room and we meet in our room, but having that come together, because especially as an electives teacher, I teach all levels in one room, and so to have those people in the meeting is going to be especially beneficial for my department.
Okay, so Erica already kind of talked about instructional agility, or one of the things that we're doing, the math whiteboards, and the kind of phrasing that they were using at this conference was instructional agility and keeping students engaged, flexible, fluid. And for us, we've kind of looked at, especially for the English department, how do we use technology? How do we have the kids use their Chromebooks? But then how do we have them incorporate Avid strategies and whiteboards and things like that? So we're kind of doing things, but then also our transition times, right? Like, how many things can you get into a 15-minute period without being overwhelming, but also keeping the kids engaged and keeping them excited about what we're doing, so that you would never walk into a classroom and have it be just kids working independently, unless that's our plan for that day. So that was a big thing, and I think that they gave us a lot of different kind of ideas at the conference that we've talked about as a team, that we'll be implementing next year.
All right, so essential standards is like a key component of also that the fair grading policies, is that you're really focusing on certain essential standards that you have agreed upon as a team. That doesn't mean that you don't hit all of the standards, but it means that you take your data away from how well everyone is doing on those essential standards, and use those to drive your practices after that. And so it creates this sort of consistency across campus with your teachers. And I think that's just a really good way to make it palatable, to say, we're going to focus on a few things and go from there. So makes it sound manageable for everybody.
Lastly, what we've done as well is the administrative team is working with our site reps, and we're taking a look at every teacher's grade book and how the grades are distributed to make sure there's equitability and accessibility for all students to be successful. And then having crucial and courageous conversations with individuals, because your grade book is like your checkbook. It's very private and personal. And so to have those conversations, and part of this process is also we're talking about the first 2 days that we get back in August, and what we're going to talk to each teacher and each group about, and it'll be the grading practices, essential standards. What do we want our students to learn? What's the PLC? What do we want to learn? How do we know they learned it? And what do we do if they don't learn it? And so making sure that's in everybody's classroom, along with our agendas that we've purchased for each student. So anybody can walk into the classroom and know exactly what the students are learning for that day. But not only is it going to be shared verbally, but it's explicit. So it will be the expectation. Classroom walkthroughs the last 6 months have been the expectation for all administrative team members to go into classrooms, see what's going on, and support both teachers and students. So thank you also for allowing us to go to Arizona. We did appreciate that very much. It worked for us as a team, and we all shared our vision, and we had some great conversations. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Okay. I'm a little sleep deprived, so I apologize. I'm very tired. It's not an excuse, but I'm a little sleep deprived, so I'm sorry.
Simply, I had a question for the young lady who was talking about punitive.
Well, they're much younger than me, so which one?
Well, you're all younger than I am. You're all younger than I am. The punitive grading and what was considered a punitive grading and what is it switched to, or what has it evolved into? Can you describe that a little bit?
Right. So they were talking about grading as far as like mastery. So if a child has mastered the concept, then they get to move on, sort of a thing. So you pick the essentials. Ideally, in their model, you would pick the essential standards, and then you would create an assessment for that. That was an assessment across your team, that they all used that common assessment. Then once you got the results back, you guys would decide as a team if they had achieved it, and if not, they don't move on until they have achieved it. So there wouldn't be zeros, because you would keep teaching until it was a 4. So they have a 4-point grading scale, so it would go from a 1 to a 4.
One of the things that I experienced as a teacher was when you have a standard that is planned to be mastered by the end of the year, and you have somebody that can jump there in November, how do you deal with that when you know that the child has already mastered something that you're still going to be working with the other children on until for another 6 months?
Right. So for just speaking personally, I'm an art teacher, so it's very easy for me to extend standards and add on to those. So like we've agreed on essential standards, right? But then there's also all those other ones that we have to cover. So I mean, I would go ahead and extend that out and create a challenge for that student and help them to reach their full potential on that standard or that item. Do you have anything to add?
So for English, we're in the middle of a pilot for 9th and 10th grade, and part of the curriculum that we really appreciated was that there are kind of challenges or extensions to our curriculum. So if we have a student that comes in who is able to meet all of our essential standards, and it happens, right? Or they meet them in the fall after a couple of assessments, and we're pretty secure that they're right where they need to be or higher than that. We have other opportunities to have them still be a part of the class, but also, challenge them and have them grow as well. So at that point, we'd be looking beyond the essential standards, because that's not something that would be, essential standards aren't going to be the entire breadth of what we would do in like 9th grade or 10th grade English. It's just those kind of core things we know every kid has to be able to do at the end of the year. So for those kids, when we have that kind of situation, we're going to ask them, okay, this is our next thing, this is our next standard. So kind of strategically creating assignments for them or for groups of kids that are going beyond what our essential standards are. And that kind of goes along with that punitive grading, where if we have a kid who is meeting all those essential standards and we know is really high but has their grades not correlating, maybe they're skipping assignments or taking zeros for assignments, that potentially is an issue that we need to look at and solve, right? Because this child is capable of meeting those standards and has shown us that they know the work, but their grade isn't connecting. So that's a conversation that we're going to be having in our teams next year. How can we help those students be challenged and kind of grow to their potential?
Thank you.
Are there any more questions?
I have one question. Ms. Tejeda, and what is your name, the English teacher?
Rachel Markham.
Markham? Miss Markham and?
Torres.
And Ms. Torres. Okay, first of all, I want to say thank you for attending this PLC conference and for your commitment. We can see that you are into that, right? So I just have one question, a few questions. In terms of the dynamics of the logistics of PLCs, in the English department, are we going to have, or are you going to have a English 9 PLC, English 10 PLC, and so on? Same thing with electives?
So currently what we have is we meet as a PLC group. And administrators go to each PLC at different times, but where everybody has a department. To respect the teachers that are there on time, we also take attendance of those who are not there and have conversations, because things can happen. So there's a big accountability from both parts. But as soon as the department chair shares, this is what the point or the purpose, or this is the information I have to share with you, then they break off into teams. So we have Algebra 1, Algebra 2, English 9, 10, 11, ELD, and everybody breaks into separate teams, so that then they, in turn, can work on the data as a team.
Okay.
VAPA is a little difficult. If you want to talk. Okay.
I can speak to, for visual and performing arts, it is a little different because we are singletons. I'm an art, well, there's two art teachers, but then there's your theater and your band teachers. So what we do is our standards are similar in ways, and so we work to find ways that they are similar. So all of us have a form of creative expression. Every person has to produce some sort of creative product, and so we will go ahead and create data, or gather data based on standards that we have in common, so that then we can talk together about that. Now, if me and the other art teacher need a moment because we have a specific issue that is only related to our classes, well then of course, but we do try and make it so that we're all at the table together. And it's a challenge to find those common standards time after time. And, it's not something that happened overnight, and it's not happening overnight. It's going to be a process, of course, but we're working hard at it, and we see the progress is good.
And it is a lot of work, right? So basically, you meet as a department, and then you go into the PLCs by the subject, right? ELA 9 and ELA 10. On number 3, you were talking about data-driven instruction, and you mentioned about common data, right? I imagine it's common assessments where you determine what the students need to learn, right? How do we know? That's what you mentioned, right, Mr. Gueda? How do we know, if I remember correctly, do they learn it, and what are we going to do about it, right? And then Ms. Mark and Ms. Torres, they talk about the standards. Is that something that is those standards determine that they must master at the end of the year by the site, at the site level, or it's a district level determination? Actually, the teachers, right? Because the teachers are the ones who know what the students need to learn. Do the teachers select and determine and agree what are going to be the standards? Let's talk specifically about English 9, right? Do they do that?
I can tell you. Okay, we just did this. I'm ready. Okay, so we do two different things. We meet the teachers that teach specific subjects. So the entire 9th grade team this year, from Heritage, Paloma, Paris, have all met together and talked about essential standards. Excellent. And talked about kind of vertical articulation from 9th grade to 12th grade. What do we expect kids to know how to do? And then how do we work backwards from there so we get to our end goals? But then at our site team, it's kind of more fine-tuned. So the answer is yes to both your questions. We meet as a site, we decide those things specifically. There might be a little bit of difference between our sites just because our school communities and cultures are a little bit different. Or we might be seeing something where, because of our feeder schools, a lot of our 9th grade students will come in with certain skills that maybe, and we have the opportunity, we're thankful for that. We've had the opportunity to talk to teachers at other sites, and they'll say, oh gosh, my 9th graders came in and they killed it on that, whatever that standard is, but we're not seeing that. That's kind of where the fine tuning comes down at our specific sites. But yes, through 9th through 12th grade at the comprehensive high schools, we really have had a lot of conversations about that in the last year, specifically about our essential standards being aligned.
Excellent. And you develop common assessments at the
Yes.
ELA 9 Heritage High School.
Yes.
And that is the data, right? How you
Correct.
data-driven
Yes, and we
instruction.
should by next year for 9th and 10th grade, because we're doing this adoption. I believe that we will have the same common assessments for all the comprehensive high schools. 11th grade is the same because they do an SBAC kind of practice test throughout the year. So those are the same at all the comprehensive high schools. And then 12th grade is the same. So yeah, we've kind of had the same assessments across. I'm pretty sure.
And you are a department chair, right?
Yes.
The English department chair. And the English department have a PLC leaders for English 9, English 10, English 11.
We have team leads for each
You
of
have
those
team
levels. Yeah, so
Excellent.
they help do that.
I would also like to add two more things. I just kind of pushed her out of the way. I was only given 10 minutes, by the way, so I'm so sorry. But we have allowed at Heritage High School the teams to have a pull-out day so that they can look at common assessments together and they can grade together as a team. So we're allowing that time for ELD, for intervention, for pacing for them as well. So that they have more than just a PLC or a Friday collab. We're allowing them to meet together. But I'd also like to add that social studies has leads as well. Math has leads, and we're working in that direction so that there is not just a department chair, but team leads for each content area, and then allowing for that pull-out time, making sure it doesn't conflict with any other events on campus and sub-issues and things like that.
Well, and thank you for supporting the teachers in that way, because there's a lot of work. I know that for a fact. And that leads me to the next question. How many, Mr. Tejeda, how many teachers are in the English department?
Oh my goodness.
About 10, 15?
No, we have about 24,
Okay.
about 24 teachers. And we also allow for our ELD department to meet as
Okay.
well. And so we have English 9, 10, 11, 12, and then we have our ELD meet as well so that they can have conversations. And then there's a lot of cross-curricular because, for example, Ms. McCurry teaches ELD and she also has an English class, or Ms. Coover teaches regular English and ELD as well. So we have to make those concessions and those arrangements to be sure that with fidelity, everybody is meeting and everybody's time is valued, which is where that Friday collab comes in as well.
Yeah, thank you. And that answer leads to this comment. If we have 24 teachers, right, and only 10 teachers have been trained, how can we support our department chairs? Because you are working really hard. And if only maybe 10 teachers went to the conference, how many for the English department? I know Ms. Markham went there. So
I can actually answer that, as we had 4 teachers from the English department that did come. Our SBAC scores aren't what we'd like to be, and we're very cognizant of what our dashboard looks like. It's difficult to get teachers to go during their time off, which is a week, because there was family plans and things like that. So we did not have a representative from math, but we are working very closely with the math department to provide additional support and pull out for them as well when dealing with the master schedule and being very intentional of where our teachers are placed and what they're teaching.
Yeah, so I was thinking probably we can start thinking about how can we support it, not necessarily during the time off for the teachers, to provide that training, because we need all the teachers. If we have just in the English department more than 20 and 4 had been trained, and one of them is Ms. Markham, the other teachers, they really need to be knowledgeable about that and have the buy-in in order to really implement. Otherwise, it's going to be more difficult. And I know that you are excited, and I would like to see that excitement, once we hit those challenges of other teachers. Not because they don't want to do it, it's because they don't know how to do it. Are there any plans to, because we have 24, I guess probably we have 100 teachers,
103.
103 teachers at Heritage, and
There'll be 105 by the way.
105, and 10 have been trained, right? It's about 10%.
So yeah, Dr. Rao, I think our goal, and this is part of the process of bringing in our teachers so that we can see the work that's going on. Our goal next year is to, on a couple of scales, we want to make sure we continue to send teachers off to the training, but we know we're not going to get the entire department through that process, but we would like to have coaches from the PLC solution tree come out and work directly with school sites during the year. That way they're able to, when they are pulling teachers out, we'll have those coaches on campus working with entire departments, entire grade levels. So that's kind of the plan for next year, is to bring coaches out that will work with these teachers with their teams and go in and train and provide those services so we can expand the work that we're doing.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that, because I think it's really important to support the department chair so they can continue to do their job.
During those PD days, we're actually having teachers and admin work with different groups on professional development and what the professional learning communities and what the expectation is. So it will be a tag team with the teacher and an administrator to be explicit with the expectations. But we have a guiding coalition that we'll talk about next time. But we do have a group of teachers that's a guiding coalition that provide professional development to teachers one Friday a month. And part of that will be the PLC process. And so we're kind of merging everything together to make sure that we're on the common goal, supporting PLC, supporting collaboration time that the district has given us, and looking at some positive student results.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions?
Great job.
Item 12.2, health and wellness update. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board and Cabinet, President Garcia and the Board, and Superintendent Bennett and the Board, or the Cabinet. We have two very brief updates for you, just kind of a spring tune-up on some attendance and discipline things and some wellness. And I want to kind of preface this with, we want to see you to see these as two married presentations, because I think in the past maybe discipline was over here. Well, discipline should be connected to student wellness, and that's part of our multi-tiered system of support that we're trying to bring a new ethos to attendance and behavior. So we'll start with the attendance and behavior. Oh, we're gonna do most social emotional first. Okay, I like that. I wanna finish with this. Can I do that? Can we switch them? Because I think we'll give you the discipline, and then we'll talk about grounding that in some of the trauma that we're seeing in our kids and some of the data that we've collected and some things that we're gonna do. Because the wellness one has more of an action plan at the end. So you have before you both hard copies, and it's on the screens. I learned the first time, I think I had a few very busy slides, and I wanted these to be very clean and easily visible for you. Of course, we started always with our vision and mission statement, and then our area of concern is LCAP Goal 3. Oh, I've got the clicker, yeah. Okay.
Well, I like the way he's clicking.
There we go. Don't use the middle button. I think my mother taught me that, yeah. Okay. All right, so we're all very comfortable and know our vision and mission statement. We always begin with that. And of course, we're very concerned when we look at our students' discipline or their mental health and their wellness about safety and creating positive environments for staff and students. We're very happy to report that overall this year, spring to spring, there's a 17% decrease in total student suspensions. So it's markedly down, and we can talk about what some of those reasons are. And because this was particularly a safety presentation, we wanted to just focus on kind of the three big ones, which are fights. You're all familiar with Ed Code, but 4900A1 are your physical altercations. In 17-18, we had 570 suspensions for that particular Ed Code violation. This year, that's down 12% to 501. And you'll see in the blue area there, when I got here, we didn't track previously, at least last year, how many of those were actually mutual combat fights and how many were other types of altercations. So we wanted to dig a little deeper in terms of actionable data, and we've kept track this year and separated those entries out. And 154 of those 501 suspensions are actual mutual combat. So now we should be able in subsequent years to get some multi-year trends on that, and really, because that's a very important number in terms of the efficacy of our campus supervisors and all the counseling they do, and the counseling and systems of support. So we thought that was very important to highlight that. If you go to the next page, you will see an uptick there, and it's a significant one, 53% in terms of willful use of force. I think this is actually a more accurate number. My theory that I want to present to you is that they have not actually gone up. And part of, if I tear back, the reason this has gone down slightly is because I don't think our assistant principals were coding them quite correctly before. I think they were coding a lot of A2s as actually A1s. And, a campus, yeah. And we really did some good training at the beginning of the year to go through and read the elements of the Ed Code and distinguish what's in A2 and what's in A1. So I know this is an alarming number, but I think it's an actual more accurate number. I don't think there are more. I think we're just getting more efficacy in terms of our reporting. So I don't know if you have questions about that at the end or now. I can certainly stop at any point. When you go to Bs, Bs are one of our most dangerous indicators, and that's weapons. I know you're familiar with this, and we see a 21% decrease in terms of the weapons recovered from campus. And I think that's a testament to our campus supervisors and some of the trainings they've done, the mentoring they're doing, the supervision they're doing, the relationship building that's going on. This is a very important indicator for school safety. So yes, sir. Yeah, yes, sir. We should tell you there haven't been any firearms or explosives this year. Those are all lumped together. The majority of these have been sadly knives. Occasionally you get a dangerous object like brass knuckles or things like that. But there have been no explosives, thankfully, and no firearms on our campuses this year that we've caught. Yep. So but it's good to see that number down. That tells us kids are feeling safe and don't feel the need to bring those things to school. What is up, and I think this is going to be a trend that you're going to see across the state, there's a 23% increase in C violations, drug violations. And we're seeing the largest increase in vaping. Yep, I read your lips there. And particularly marijuana wax. And with the legalization of marijuana and the increased access, we will come back to this at the second portion when we talk about the wellness of our students in the second presentation, because we were doing a big push on training and marijuana wax, and it is a real danger to our students. I think it's really affecting the safety and wellness of our students, our young people across the state. So, and we've got some real things in place to address this next year, and it's in our LCAP goals.
Mr. Ruff,
Yes, sir.
do we have cases? How are we doing with concentrated cannabis?
That's
Can-
what we're
can
talking
we-
about with the
the
marijuana
marijuana
wax.
wax?
Marijuana
Is that-
wax is the
okay.
concentrated cannabis that they put in the vape pins, and that's what we're
And that's
actually
what we're
talking
talking
about. Yeah,
about?
that
Okay,
we're-
sorry.
that's the increase that
It's
we're
the
seeing,
same,
sir.
marijuana wax.
It is
Okay.
rampant across the state. It is really dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the potency of that concentrated cannabis, it's not. It's far more potent than it used to be, that smoking a joint would have been, or marijuana traditionally. If you go there to the next one, 4800.4, that's creating a hostile or intimidating environment. That's down significantly, 6%. And then the last one is, no, you know what, thank you, that was the next slide that I was coming back to, so that's a very pertinent question. Can I answer that by going to the next slide? Because you're educated on this. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see that terrorist threats, 48900.7, have decreased, but I don't think they have decreased. I think we're seeing more .4s, the hostile environments, because the ed code for that, and we did that training where we really broke down it's such a high burden to prove this one, that once we educated APs, they're now coding it correctly. So I think this would.
.4 is still down by 6%, even though that.
It is. So overall, it's still safer, but I think this .4 would have been down over 10% if they had kept coding the terrorist threats the way they were. And we needed a little clarification. We have a lot of new assistant principals. I know you and I had some really interesting conversations about that. That's a really sophisticated ed code, the most difficult one. And we spent about an hour breaking that ed code down for our APs, and I think they're coding it correctly now. So that's been a really nuanced conversation with them. Did that answer your question, President? Yes, sure, good. So again, this is where we began. You see a 17% decrease overall, and I think that's wonderful news. Of course, we have to look deeper than that, and we have to look at our subgroups. And we're also, along with that decrease, we see a 3.6 decrease in African-American student suspensions. We see a 4.1 decrease in special ed, 5.4 in the REL students, and then 2.8 decrease in our our free and reduce, our socioeconomically challenged students. So it is a downward trend that we're happy to see, and we believe it's because we're focused on relationship building and alternatives to suspension, and still trying to hold kids accountable, but giving them other resources. Question, sir?
So our alternatives to suspension, are they actually working? Are we seeing progress in that? And when will we get some data on that?
Absolutely. Now in the fall, we do a real deep dive in terms of every ed code and suspension rates, and we'll give you that. That's a much larger presentation. This was kind of a spring tune-up, but we are seeing a real response, and particularly at Pinnacotti Middle School and Paris High School, we have those two programs. That's where we've seen the most significant decreases. The other reason these are all going down, we're seeing kids get in trouble the first time about the same rates, but we're not seeing the second or third offenses. And that's where you can, again, that actual data, when you can go and fine tune that and say, oh, we're seeing the same amount of firsts, but we're not seeing second and thirds, then that shows the efficacy of those interventions. Yeah, so thank you for that question. And then you have some breakdowns by your individual high schools. There, I don't know if you have questions about those. Expulsions overall are down significantly, 32 last year, 14 this year. And we're just not seeing those big five like some of the things, sadly, that you voted on tonight. Some of those, that was a unique case. But those have to come forward and have to be expelled. So we're seeing fewer and fewer of those large, egregious, dangerous ones, and more that we can give contracts to and try to rehabilitate kids. So this should look very good on our dashboard information. We're very pleased with this. Okay. Attendance. There's only one slide in attendance because, again, in the fall, we will give you a very deep dive on attendance and our action plan. But we wanted to do something different this time. I think in the past, when I first got here, I saw that 92 and 96%, and I was perplexed why Paris attendance data was so much lower than surrounding districts. What I came to find out is that traditionally you've been reported, and this is an accurate report, ADA to enrollment. And those of you that do school financing, you know how that is. ADA to enrollment is Ms. Rain's very important number. It's how much money is brought in. The way to explain this is in what we call P2, from seabeds in October, when we take a count up to P2, there were 130 days this year. Let's say you, President Garcia, were here 130 out of 130 days. That would be 100%. But let's say, Mr. Stafford, you came halfway through the year, and you could only attended 65 out of the 65 days you were here. Well, you had 100% attendance, but it wouldn't be reported in terms of ADA to enrollment because you were only able to come half of the year. So the state's only going to pay us for the half of the year that you were here. So if we take your two attendance numbers together, it's about 75%, even though you both came 100% of the time. Does that make sense? So ADA to enrollment is a very powerful and important indicator because it pays the bills, and Ms. Raines needs to know how much money is coming in to set the budget. But it isn't as actionable, to go back to your idea of what's actionable data, as a straight attendance rate from our student information system. And that is actually, you two under that scenario attended 100%. That, it wouldn't be reported though, it would be 75% under the top number. So when we run it in our student information system, our number this year is 94.23. Last year it was 94.54. We've had some rainy days. We do think that 94.23, we've got some Saturday schools, we're probably gonna hit that same number. But it is really important for us to know that that's the actionable number, that how many days when kids are with us, they've attended. And we do have a very high mobility rate at some of our schools, higher than, you know, many surrounding districts. Kids are moving. Questions, sir? I thought I read something in your face.
No, it was more of an idea, but, well, I guess, yeah. So what are we doing are we rewarding people, students for positive attendance?
Absolutely. Schools have been given some money for attendance rewards. They're pushing Saturday school. Paloma had a record Saturday school, 489 kids at the last Saturday school. So they've tied it to some rewards like prom and grad night and some other things. Some of those seniors who are most chronically absent really got it in gear. So they are trying to do some incentives for that. Yeah, absolutely.
When you said we are giving some funding or some for attendance rewards, that means the district office gives the money to the schools?
Yes, they each get a budget for.
There is a budget for attendance rewards.
Attendance rewards. We can give you a report out on what they did for specifically different schools and different sites. But we found that raffles in Saturday school really help kids get there. They like those raffles.
I think we would like that information because, you know, it's what motivates kids, right?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. If I could pivot now, because, and again, I want you to see these, or my hope is that you'll see these as two connected presentations and not discipline over here and student wellness over here, but students act out when they're not feeling good, when they're not successful, when they're not well, to be honest. So as we pivot to this next one, we hope that this isn't just a pitch we're making to you. This is what Dr. Newman and I are trying to suggest to all of our APs, our teachers, our classified, everyone, that this connection between student wellness and student discipline, they shouldn't be independent of one another. And you're gonna see some data here. We actually, and Julie Zero deserves much of this credit, and someone named Beth Hayden, who set up a system where our counselors, when they meet with kids, could do an easy entry and we could find out what kind of meetings are they actually having with our kids. And first thing we wanted to look at is by site. And this kind of gives you a breakdown. Pinacati Middle School is clearly the leader there, but that's testament to this board and this cabinet because you gave money specifically for a social, emotional, a wellness counselor to just do wellness counseling. And so that's working. Students are coming to that person, Mr. Tinajero. So they have overwhelmingly the biggest number of entries. We also thought it would be interesting to look at time of day. You know, is there a certain time of day when our kids are struggling? And it appears they're not. It's pretty uniform throughout the 7 periods of the day. We thought it might be more at the end when kids are tired or taxed, but it seems to be pretty uniform. We did see some interesting data in terms of the day of the week. I thought it might be Friday. Some of our kids have hard lives over the weekend. And school's a very nurturing, supportive place. But it's actually Thursday, and we turned to our new director of special education, and he said there's actually some research in this that students tend to be stressed on Thursdays in anticipation of the weekend. And they begin prepping and ramping up. Well, that's very valuable information to know that maybe on those Thursdays we got to slow down and be a little more nurturing and take those extra moments. So this was a pretty actionable piece of data, I thought, especially when we tie it to some of the research that Mr. Alzabadi presented.
Mr. Ralph?
Yes, sir.
Just one question, and
No,
you
no.
might, not a problem, you might not have the answer. Based on what you are saying, to the best of your knowledge, do we have more students late to school on Mondays or Fridays?
You know what?
Because both of them are late starts, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
You know what? I don't have that data. I'll run it.
because we have it on
Late to school and absent.
late to school, yes.
We
It-
know
it's a late
absences
start.
tend to be Mondays and Fridays throughout our industry. That's more. But we've never compared Friday to Monday, and I'll check.
Because there are 2 days. Usually there is one late start, right?
Right.
And that's when more, the students are, we have a
Yeah, you've already
higher
slept
number of
in. Now it's even
students
harder. You're out of your
who are late.
routine.
But now that you mentioned that research about Thursdays, I was wondering if that had something to do.
You know what? I will run it, and we
Getting
will.
Close to the end of the,
We'll bring it to you.
Of
We'll
the
just
weekend.
have it. Dr. Newman can bring it to you in closed session next month.
Thank you.
Sure. We thought it might be interesting to look at grade level, and we weren't surprised here that we see our middle school kids. It's such a taxing time in your life when you're going through so many changes that our middle school kids do come forward with the most concerns and are reaching out to counselors, which is also a testament to you putting that support counselor at the middle school. This is the same data, just in a bar graph form. So I'll rush through that one a little bit. This one is very interesting. By gender, how often are students coming forward? And I think this probably doesn't surprise you that our female students tend to come forward and open up to their counselors a little more than men, boys who tend to be in our culture a little more stoic and hold it in. So it's good to know. Maybe we need to reach out to them a little more. Maybe we need to prod them to open up a little more. But we ran it by gender as well. I think this is the page that we should slow down for you a little bit. And it's the reason we really wanted you to have the handout, because it's packed with information. And I know it's not good to give you busy slides, but there's so much here to think about. And this is tied to some of our goals next year. But if you see all the calls that they've documented, anxiety and stress, classroom behavior, conflict mediation. If you look at self-harm, 99, and suicide prevention, 74. Those two numbers taken together tell us our kids are bringing a lot of trauma, a lot of pain to school. And it's hard to be a young person with social media and everything else. We had a very good training with campus supervisors where we went over adverse childhood experiences and the flight and fight syndrome, and it was really a really fun exchange with the campus supervisors, because we know they do so much counseling, beyond just what counselors do. So this is a lot to take in. We know that we're developing plans to respond to these numbers and this data. It is very actionable, to go back to what Dr. Raux was saying. And as we write our LCAP plans, we have to be cognizant of what burdens our kids are carrying. So we think it's been very good to set this up and keep track of what our counselors are encountering there. The last page is kind of a response to this. This is certainly just a snapshot of things that are happening next year, but we're looking at revamping. And when we look at some of that trauma, we know that we need to have a real push next year for trainings on the ABCs, and that's antecedents, behavior, and consequences. Because when an AP calls me and tells me what a kid did wrong in terms of behavior, I should be able to say to them, okay, you told me what they've done. What caused that behavior? And I think traditionally we've talked about, oh, well, they did this. What's the punishment? Okay, well, we'll give them a little punishment, just like we do with our own kids. But really, it's about afterwards, hey, why'd you do that? Let's not do it again. That kind of alternative and mentoring and coaching. So we really think it's important next year to train and have common language, and we're going to bring in some experts, and Mr. Alzabeidi has some expertise in this area. I think it's one of the reasons you hired him. With that, we know that the 4 functions of behavior are really crucial. There's 4 basic reasons why kids misbehave: sensory escape, attention, and tangible reward. That should be a common language throughout the district, not just for APs doing discipline, but for campus supervisors, for counselors, for teachers, so that we're looking at the causes behind. And again, if you go back to this is not disconnected from the first presentation. The discipline is the response to all this that they're carrying. And that's the kind of mental shift that we need to get all of our staff involved in. So I'm really thrilled, and I want to thank you because I believe tonight you're about to approve a social work intern partnership with CBU, where we can get social work interns at every one of our schools next year. And they are going to work for some of our with some of our more traumatized kids to give them some emotional support that's greatly needed. So thank you for that. We'll end with some areas. The Wellness Committee has met and talked about areas of concerns. Again, childhood trauma and all those things that they're carrying. The vaping that we talked about and the concentrated cannabis is out of control. One of the great things about this Wellness Committee that has started this year is the nurses on there. And I wasn't aware of this till our last meeting. There's something called lipid pneumonia that our parents and our students are suffering from. When you smoke concentrated cannabis in the wax form in a vape pen, our lungs don't process wax. I didn't know that. Bevy, our school nurse, explained this to us. And kids can get secondhand vape trauma, and they are getting pneumonia because their lungs cannot, we don't process wax out of our lungs. And it's becoming a little bit of an epidemic. So we're thinking we need to do some parenting classes, some class presentations on the dangers of vaping next year. And edible marijuana, we're certainly seeing a large increase in that with the legalization of it. There's also an overall nutritional impact, and in our wellness committee, we've had Audrey, our nutritional leader in the district, talking about some concerns and wanting to do some parent outreach. And the last one is just a good news piece for you. We wanted to end with something positive you've done this year that we're going to really expand next year. We had a Smile Premier. You signed that MOU a couple months ago. They brought out a mobile dentistry unit to Paris High School, and kids got dental work that have never had dental work before. They got it for free, and we're going to have them out once a quarter next year, and hopefully at all of our schools. It was a huge success, and kids were in a lot of pain that we didn't know about. So you signed that MOU, and I think you don't always get to see where you prove something. Well, it actually made a difference in literally the mouths of hurting kids. So that's powerful stuff. It's powerful stuff.
What about vision?
And we need to look at the vision part too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because there is another.
Absolutely. So that's it, and we'll give you. I'm sorry. Any questions? I think we had some as we went through, but I know it's a short night tonight. We just want to thank you for the opportunity, and again, we'll do a deep dive on all of these things for the fall and give you the action plan for the year. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I just whispered into Mr. Bennett's ear, and I thought it'd be best appropriate if I said it so everybody could hear. Next time you guys send out the wellness trucks, whether it's dental or vision, can you let us know how many people you guys serve? Because that's the stuff we want to hear too. We want to know that we're reaching out to the community, and obviously that's who we're here for as well. Thank you. All right. moving on, item 12.3 is an information item, discipline and attendance update. Oh, yep, there it is. Thank you very much. 12.4, information item, District Gallup employee engagement results. Sir.
Thank you, President Garcia and board. I'm excited about being here. You know, Mr. Bruff just had the opportunity of talking about our students, so I get the opportunity of talking to you about our adults. And so last year, you may recall that the board approved a contract with Gallup to do a survey of our staff and take a look at engagement. And one of the board's goals is that we have high levels of employee morale. And so what we did is we improved that last year. I worked with Gallup closely at the beginning of the school year, so we were able to roll out our first ever survey of our staff to look at their engagement. And so we, as you can see at the front slide, we conducted the survey between February 26th through March 19th, and we had about 50% of our employees participate in the survey. And obviously I would want 100% on this, but in talking to Gallup, they said it's actually very rare that you get such a large percentage in the very first time you do a survey. Typically it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 25% as opposed to 50%. The other thing is that all of our employees, and this is classified employees, certificate employees, management employees, were surveyed anonymously. So other results were provided to us anonymously, and they were only provided back to us if we had at least 4 people in a particular category. So that way the surveys would be, we would maintain the anonymity of those individuals that were providing the information to us. So the survey was pretty simple, but it provides some pretty powerful data. So I want to, and it's actionable data. I think there's a theme going through, Dr. Rao, because you brought that up and we're hearing it. And so I want to be able to share with you the data, answer any questions you have, and talk about the actions that we're going to be taking moving forward. So the very first thing that you can see is we had 472 people that participated in this survey. There were 12 questions that were asked. And of that, the mean score on them, as each question was on a scale of 1 to 5, the mean score was 3.73, and that the percentile rank was 28th percentile. As you recall, the nice thing about working with Gallup is that it compares to an industry standard, so that way when we get information back, if you were just to look at the number of 3.73, you'd go, well, that's not too bad out of a scale of 1 to 5, but when you look at it as an industry standard, 28th percentile is pretty alarming because it's a big concern, something we want to work on. Percentile obviously is lining up 1 through 100, and then we would be the 28th in that from the bottom. We're also going to talk about engagement too. I'm going to give you some data with that. So these are the overall questions that they were asked. They were asked a series of questions, the very first being on a 5-point scale where 5 means extremely satisfied and 1 means extremely dissatisfied. How satisfied are you with your organization as a place to work? And so on that, you can see that the mean score is a 3.85 out of 5. And so, but it's in the yellow area, which means it's below the 50th percentile. So we want to obviously be above the 50th percentile on all of these things. The good data on this, though, is if you take a look at the far right-hand side and you take a look at the number of participants that rated as a 4 or 5, which means satisfied or extremely satisfied, we have about 69% of our employees that are either satisfied or extremely satisfied. We have 24% of our employees that have indicated that they were neutral on that, either extremely satisfied nor extremely dissatisfied, and then 6% that were dissatisfied, and then 2% that were extremely dissatisfied. So I didn't say this, but I want to emphasize the point here is that you'll see the column in the middle that says current mean, and then you'll see 2 columns next to that, the last mean and the change. The reason that these 2 columns are extremely important, because currently they say not available, is because this is all baseline data. This is the first time we've ever done this. So the intent behind this, as the board is aware, is to do this regularly, because the next time I present, you're going to see this data will move over to the last mean. We'll have our current data from the survey, and we want to see positive % changes on all of these areas. That's the intent behind that. We intend on doing it twice a year, once during the first semester, once during the second semester. And just like we did right now, this one was initiated during the second semester. We'll do it again early fall for the first semester and again second semester, because then at different times of year, we're going to be getting different data back. But hopefully, each and every time we see it, what we're going to see is improved growth on that. The very last column is called current top box. And what that is that's taking a look at the number or the percentage of people that marked 5 on a scale of 1 to 5. So that way, you kind of understand that. And again, if it's yellow, it means it's below the 50th percentile. If it's that light green color, it's above the 50th percentile. The darker green you get, the higher up the percentile becomes. And then obviously red becomes, yellow and red are below the 50th percentile. So when you take a look at this, the 12 questions that were asked, Q1, the question was, I know what is expected of me at work. The second question is, I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right. Question number 3 is, at work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. Question 4 is, in the last 7 days, I've received recognition or praise for doing good work. Number 5 is, my supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. Number 6, there is someone at work who encourages my development. Number 7, at work, my opinion seems to count. Number 8, the mission or purpose of my organization makes me feel my job is important. Number 9, my colleagues are committed to doing quality work. Number 10, I have a best friend at work. Number 11, in the last 6 months, someone at work has talked to me about my progress. And then finally, number 12, this last year, I've had opportunities to work, to learn, and grow. So when we look at those just real briefly, and if there's any questions about details on these, I'd be more than happy to go into them. But when we look at this, obviously the ones that stand out that are glaring are question number 4, which is, in the last 7 days, I've received recognition or praise for doing good work. Go ahead, Dave.
One question. Did the Gallup company come up with this set of questions?
Yeah, they do, and they've tested them over time.
Yeah, because
repeatedly.
they had a 28 percentile rank. I figured they gave it to other companies as well. So
And that's exactly what it is. And when I shared with our administrators, I likened it to like a batting average in baseball, right? So if someone said, well, you got 30% correct, you'd be like, well, that doesn't mean anything. But if that was a batting average, you're batting 300. That for a career, that's a Hall of Fame career batting average. So that number has to apply to something, and that's exactly what this does. So that's why the percentile rank is so important. No, it's theirs, and they've manipulated those questions over time too. And it's actually, there's interesting science behind why they ask particular questions. One of the ones that I think is interesting is one of the ones that we have in the lowest percentile, and that is the one related to doing good work, actually. My colleagues are committed to doing good work, because when they originally started, they had a question that I'm committed to doing good work, and they found that everyone was marking that really high, and so that wasn't giving them the kind of data that they wanted back. But when they looked at it from a colleague's perspective, then the data was coming back more from an organizational point of view. So with that, obviously the one that we're lowest in is recognition, and our discussion in cabinet, when we look at it, is, boy, to grow on this, to actually improve employee morale, it doesn't take a whole lot. It just takes individual interactions. And I think one of the things that we've worked on before is we've worked on saying, okay, let's, as it relates to employee recognition, let's have a great Employee of the Year event. Let's have this great retirement thing. Let's really have these big events that we're doing. But that's not what the data is telling us. What the data is saying is our employees need constant, regular, authentic feedback on a regular, ongoing basis. They need to have someone that's coming to them and say, hey, I appreciate you as a person and you're doing a good job. It has to be authentic. It can't be the kind of feedback that's everybody gets a participation ribbon. It really has to be individualized to every single person that's there. Dr. Freeman, you had a question? Yeah, that's very insightful, because it could be coming from anybody. So it could be coming from a supervisor, it could be coming from a colleague, it could be coming from anybody. It's recognizing the work that we're doing, and I know the work that we do, particularly in any area that we have, we're actually rather isolated. You know, our campus supervisors are thinking that they're doing a good job, but they don't know unless someone's telling them, hey, you're doing a good job. Our teachers are really like that. They can work their tails off and not know whether they're doing a great job or not unless someone comes in and confirms that, hey, you are really meeting the needs of our kids and you're hitting a home run every day you're in here and stuff. It's that kind of feedback on an ongoing basis, that type of recognition that our employees need, and the employees in the Paris Union High School District need, and so it's something we need to work on. And you can see that a lot of that ties to the other thing. A lot of it ties to that daily recognition, ties to having someone at work that cares about me, talking about my personal development. The other big one that you see on here is related to progress. And the question again being, in the last 6 months, someone has talked to me about my progress. And so it's simply developing those relationships with one another, and that begins with our administrators, our administrators start developing the relationship with all of our employees, having conversations about the type of work they're doing, having conversations about them growing as a professional, and that affects almost every single other area that's in here. So let me go through some of these and data too. What Gallup has done is they've also broken these out into other areas, and it's not like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it's kind of like that. It starts with some basics and moves forward. And so the first one is basic needs. And on basic needs, it's the two questions, question number 1 and question number 2. I know it is expected of me at work, and I have the materials and supplies to do that work. And what we can see is these were the two that we had. They had the highest current top box score. So generally speaking, although the current mean is not where we want to see it as a percentile, generally speaking, our employees know what is expected of them at work, and they have the materials and supplies to do their job correctly. Now, obviously it's not where we want it to be, so this is just the foundation, and we're moving forward from there. But at least it lets us know that's not what we need to work on right now. What's most important for us starts in the next section, which is, as an individual, what do I give? And that is where we see that idea of recognition, where we have the largest percentage of our respondents indicating that they strongly disagree with what that statement is. Dr. Freeman? Yeah, and I'm not sure why individuals didn't respond to that particular one, but I think that building off of the last set of questions, our staff, generally speaking, are saying that they do have the opportunity of doing their best, but they're not being confirmed. It's not being confirmed on a regular basis, and that's something that we'll talk about later when we talk about action. The next step is talking about teamwork. Do I belong here? And this is where we get another set of questions, and those questions related to my opinion counts. I understand the mission and purpose. The people I work with are committed to quality work. I have a best friend at work and things like that. So the committed to quality work is another very interesting one that we need to work on. But I think specifically as we talk about recognition and talk about growth as an individual, that we'll see these numbers go up as well over the next 6 months, because that's what we're looking at in terms of target as it relates to our next assessment. The next area is growth. How can I grow as an individual? And those are those last two. Someone's talked to me about my progress, and I have the opportunity to work and learn and grow within my district. And so you can see that across the board, we're seeing percentiles that are below 50%, and the ones that are alarming are the ones that are below 25%. But it's all baseline, and it gives us a spot to work from and grow from. So with that, we also get engagement, and the employees, not only are their responses provided in terms of how they respond to the particular survey, but they're also categorized into one of the three groups. Either engaged, and an engaged employee is someone that is on board, that's saying, "This, I believe in the organization, I'm buying in, I'm doing everything that, I'm moving in the direction, I'm putting in extra time, I'm committed to being part of the Paris Union High School District." That would be an engaged employee. Not engaged employee is an employee who's identified as, the type of employee that clocks in and clocks out. They're 4 times 8, they get there at 8, they have to leave at 4:30, they're clock at 8 at 4:30. They're there to do a job, they're going to do the job, but as it relates to the mission of the organization, it's really not, that's not what's critically important to them. That's another way of saying it, yeah. And then finally, you have the third category, and that's actively disengaged. And those are the individuals that they're not just not engaged, they're not just the clock watchers, they're actually attempting to undermine what we're doing as a district, and they're working against what the district is attempting to do and stuff. So when we look at this data, we see that about 31% of our employees are engaged, which is good, but alarmingly, 52% of our employees are not engaged. And that's obviously a big number. Over half of our employees are not engaged in what we're doing. And then even more alarmingly, we have a large percentage, 17% of our employees that are actively disengaged, working against what we're attempting to do as a district. So the purpose behind sharing this with you is because by addressing the needs that were on the initial question, we're able to reduce the number of people that are not engaged and hopefully reduce the number of people that are actively not engaged, so we gain a larger number of employees that are actively engaged in the work that we're doing as a district, moving forward for the needs of our students. So with that, we have an action plan, and the action plan is kind of twofold. It happens at both the site and department level, where all of the data that we shared with you, we shared the overall data, and that's what you get to see right here. We also shared data that's site-specific or department-specific with all of our administrators, so that our administrators know, our principals at our school know, and our assistant principals know exactly the data that's at their school, and there are differences between school to school and department to department. Department administrators also receive the data for their departments, so that way they can develop unique plans within their school or within their department to address the needs of our employees, to specifically work on things with their employees. However, it's not good enough just to leave it to them, so that's the next part of it is what we call hashtag Operation Awesome, and that's where HR is taking the lead in the initiative to provide regular and ongoing authentic recognition and feedback to our administrators to help address those biggest area of weaknesses, those parts as they relate to recognition and as they relate to having conversations with our employees about the progress. Those are the things that we're going to be working on over the next 6 months to address the areas of concerns that we saw here. The other thing that we're going to do is our Ed Services Department is going to be working on doing some professional development for our administrators over the next few months that also ties into this, building positive working relationships with our employees and focused on providing authentic recognition and feedback to them as well. So it's through that approach that we were going to be working on looking at improving this data. We'll do an assessment again come fall. We're going to continue working and seeing what that assessment, what the data shows then, looking at modifying our action plan as needed for our next assessment and so forth. So it's ongoing, it's cyclical. It's kind of like action research where you implement an intervention, you analyze it, you adjust your plan, you do another implementation, make some observations, move forward from there. So any questions, Dr. Freeman?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's any movement to incorporate this with Dr. White's kindness.
You know, there isn't anything specific, but I have thought about that. I thought about what we're doing as administrators and in my mind, and I think that's a good question. In my mind, at least, when our administrators start demonstrating, and many of them do, but intentionally providing positive feedback and recognition to our employees, then it's those kinds of things become contagious, and we start seeing it across the board. And I think that ties in with the kindness stuff exactly. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I thank you sincerely for allowing the opportunity to talk.
Item 13.1 is another information item, Williams Settlement Quarterly Uniform Complaint Report Summary for January 2019 through March 2019. Item 13.2 is the information item, Discipline, March 2019 Monthly Suspension Reports. Item 14.1 is an action item on the general functions. Sorry, Dr. Rao. And then Mr. Freeman was second. Oh, okay. All right. Any discussion? All right, please vote. Yeah, it's working. Yeah. You, Mr. Freeman. Yeah. The vote is 4 yes, 1 abstention, which is Dr. Rao. Moving on to the next item, 14.2. We're going to take a break for about a minute or two, if you guys don't mind. Time is 7 o'clock. So we'll wait till it turns 7:01 to resume. That was the fastest break. Okay, the time is 7:01. We'll resume. Item 14.2, personnel, or excuse me, is an action item, personnel, certificated personnel action items. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Dr. Rao, and the second was, I'm sorry, Mr. Freeman? Nielsen. Any discussion? No? Please vote. Item 14.2 is a 5-0 vote. Item 14.3 is an action item, personnel, classified personnel action items. Is there a motion? Mr. Freeman, Mr. Stafford, any discussion? None? Please vote. Item 14.3 is a 5-0 vote. Item 14.4 is another action item, personnel, new job description, special education administrator, and authorization to recruit. Is there a motion? Mr. Freeman? Mr. Nielsen? Any discussion?
There were some thoughts about this with building the new school and the fact that we might have some budget cuts in different departments, and we're going for an administrator here. The exact number of kids we're serving, Mr. Bennett, I think we went over that, was 82 in
82 at Pathways, yes.
At which one?
At Pathways.
Okay, that's the 18 to 22-year-olds. And then how many in the special
Special ed
ed?
altogether.
Well, that'll all be encompassed under this, right? Under this administrator?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the number as well. How many do we have in special ed for across the board, not including the
Ken is going to pull the exact number up right now.
And what duties there was some question about the administrator being freed up that's going to go out to visit the sites, the other tech,
The coordinator
the
position.
coordinator position to be freed
Right,
up.
we
yeah.
were using the coordinator position this year to run that program, and we're not be able to service the kids at the regular sites as well with our administrative team because we're locked into having them on campus there.
Okay. This question is not to put anyone on the spot, but to put the reality and be transparent. You know, I'm hearing rumors of difficulties in our special ed, and I want to know, is the state in to audit us? Are we under lawsuits? Are people threatening lawsuits? What's going on in our special ed department? In a brief. I mean,
Right. So we just finished our CDE review, where California Department of Education, they come out and they basically review all your IEP files, and so we're preparing to provide an update for you possibly at the next board meeting, and we'll have Cindy Barris and Emil come out and provide an update for you. But they did complete their review, and so we have some specific findings, and so we are providing those updates for you in the weekly updates that we send out to you, kind of keeping you informed what's going on.
Yes,
Also,
I know they're in.
and then the Office of Civil Rights, we are working with the Office of Civil Rights, and we're providing those updates as well on a regular basis. So that's kind of what's going on right now in our special ed department. But as Mr. Bennett was just sharing, currently with our coordinator, coordinator's working in district, and so because the needs of special ed increasing, there's also services that we need to provide to non-public schools. Those are our students as well, that are outside the district. So all those IEPs we're responsible for as well. And so typically in the past, historically, the coordinator of special education would service all of our non-public students. The Riverside County Office of Education, some of the non-public schools, all those are serviced. Those are high need cases that typically our coordinators would service. But typically, because of the lack of this position has kept our coordinator inside the district. Now our director is basically caught up running around taking care of all those as well, and not being able to supervise the work inside the district.
Okay. Well,
Could I answer now the number? We have 1,350 kids in special education at this time, which is a 60% increase in the past 5 years. So the numbers in there have been blowing up, and we have the same number of people, administrators, in charge of the department as we had back then.
Inflating numbers mainly due to feeder districts, the numbers coming from the feeder districts
Yes.
being increased as well?
We don't identify that many students at the high school level for special education. They come to us with their IEP in hand.
I can share that in Menifee, it was stated it is 13%,
13% increase?
and we have about 10,000.
30% of the student population? Or
Yes,
13%
13%.
of student population are still special needs.
I have a different question. You want to?
I just wanted to piggyback and follow up on the question in regards to the lawsuits. Are there anything pending right now? Or did we settle anything recently in regards to special ed?
That- Yeah, we just settled 2 recently.
Okay, and we'll get that update you said.
Yes, we'll provide those up. Weekly, we provide updates for you in the weekly report.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, this position, the special ed administrator, that's going to grow underneath that administrator?
The program we're looking at the same number for our 18 to 22-year-old program, but we're putting in to take back the kids with autism
Okay.
back also to our district, which will put more kids over there within our own program. And it'll end up, it costs money to get it started, but it's gonna save us way more than that, because right now we're sending them out to RCOE and paying a lot of money to do that.
So how many students are going to be under this administrator?
Well, currently there's 82,
82.
and then there was, I think they wanna say almost 30 kids in the autistic program they'd be bringing back to the district. So that'd be 112, and then we're gonna continue to look at those programs that we're sending kids out to see if we were bringing back more of them.
And the job description says it's under the supervision of the Director of Special Education. What would the it just says Special Education Administrator. What would be the level that this administrator would be at?
It would be similar to an assistant principal position.
And Board, if I may just add, you started off the first question, I think, with a fiscal, that was you, Mr. Stafford, right? A fiscal, lens, and I'm generally the first one to look through that. And so when we started contemplating bringing back the program, even in the initial stages, we built that into the budget long range. And that was a savings for the district. But one of the components was that to take back the program from the county, we had to offer the same or better services, which is why special education had to put the coordinator in that, let's call it a site-based position, thereby taking away services and preventing us, this is what's key, preventing us from liability. And when people are stretched too thin, that's when mistakes sometimes are made. And then we have special education advocates, coming in. And I'm not the special education expert, I'm not the curriculum expert, but I'm looking through the financial lens. And when we don't have the appropriate support personnel in place, that's when I've found, and in talking with colleagues in other districts as well, that's when mistakes are made, and that's when you have to open up your checkbook a lot more. So I just wanted to provide that from the fiscal side.
Okay. If I remember correctly, when you said to bring back those students, are we talking about the same students that a couple of years ago we decided to send them to RCA? Are they the same students?
No, we
These
didn't
are different
operate,
students?
so we're legal, oh, maybe I'm stepping into your territory here. Just kick me. We are legally required to offer education for special education students who are 18 to 22 year olds. It becomes voluntary, so it's not compulsory ed, like our regular students.
Yeah.
But we didn't provide that, so the county did that for us. And they did that at 2 different locations, I think. Valverde and MSJC, if I recall correctly. And so when we say we took back the program from the county operating it, so it's not a situation like a community day school where the students violated, some provision of the ed code and were sent, like in pupil services now. And we took the kids back. So we're legally required to educate those students. We're just now doing it We're giving them better quality education and with a little bit lower price tag.
Okay, so when we talked a couple of years ago about sending the students to the county, they were the community day school?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
these were already,
Yeah, that was,
there.
I know which presentation you're
Okay,
referring to now,
yes,
yes.
yeah.
So I'm
So
sorry
I
for
was
that confusion.
wondering what is the difference now? If we,
Different children.
okay,
These aren't the
different children.
expelled kids.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And where are they housed? The
The old
18 to
academy
22?
building.
In the all
It used to be the academy over there, that's where we
Yeah.
house the program.
The PULSE program.
And our
so-
whole special ed department's over there too, the coordinator, director, their ancillary staff.
Okay. And at this time, they had been overseeing that program, the PULSE.
Right, the coordinator has been tied down over there to watch, keep an eye on the program.
Okay, okay. Have we, I'm just thinking, have we thought about placing that program in a high school? I think we talked about it, right? And we didn't finish that conversation.
We don't have the rooms at the regular high schools.
We don't have the rooms at the regular
Even
high school.
Paris High School, because we're tearing out the rest of those buildings out of there, that'll be coming out within about a year.
In the other high schools, there is no room
There's
at
no
all.
room.
Yeah, because we talk about not having the students isolated. I remember a few months ago, we talked about providing the opportunity to be with all the students so they feel valued, and that inspires also our students in the comprehensive high schools to really understand and care and support and help the students with the disabilities that they are. We're talking about the functional skills classes, right? 18 to 22? Yeah. And we talk about that because I know that there are some districts that in the high schools, and I remember, actually I have that 40 students, 39 to be specifically, functional skills students that they are there at the high school, but there is no room in the high schools. Absolutely no room. Okay. Okay.
This is the position that we deferred on filling previously when we were in the bind with nutrition services, right? Okay. Do you anticipate that we're gonna, with the growth, I mean, it's gonna be a couple of years before the new high school is opened, that there's gonna be room there? Or how is that gonna work? It just seems like there needs to be more under this umbrella as far as students. It just doesn't seem to be enough students.
There may be room at the schools once we complete Liberty High School, but the position that we're looking at could continue on even at a school site if we had to.
Okay.
It's not tied to be just at the PALS building, but we don't foresee moving that away from that building just because if we bring the autistic kids back, they're now on a RCOE site, so we're looking at about 2 or 3 classrooms for autistic kids. So you're up to, right now we have 4 or 5 classrooms. I think 5 classrooms, 5 teachers over there, yeah.
5 teachers?
And then if the autistic kids would be 2 or 3 more classrooms, so you're talking 8 classrooms now, which is a huge impact on a comprehensive campus.
Okay. Yeah, we're all doing that.
And this position is
Okay, that's, you don't see those, the gnats? Yeah. Okay, that answers my questions. Sure.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Any other discussion? No? Please vote. Item 14.4 is 3 yes and 2 abstentions. So it passes. Item 14.5 is another action item. Personnel approval of memorandum of understanding between Paris Union High School District and Paris Secondary Educators Association regarding the 2019 health benefits dental implant insurance rider. Is there a motion? Mr. Freeman and Mr. Stafford. Any discussion? No? Please vote. Item 14.5 is a 5-0 vote. Item 14.6 is another action item, personnel resolution number 25 for the 1819 proclamation of May 8th, 2019 as Day of the Teacher.
Second.
Mr. Nielsen, and I'm sorry, who was second? Dr. Rao. And any discussion? No? Please vote. Item 14.6 is a 5-0 vote. Item 14.7 is an action item, personnel resolution number 26 for 1819 proclamation of May 19th through 25th, 2019 as Classified Employees Week. Is there a motion? Mr. Nelson and Mr. Stafford. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Why did one group get a day and the other one get the week?
Because we're special. Does Cabinet want to answer?
It's actually on CDE's calendar. So CDE establishes all their calendar for these types of things, and so they're the ones that have selected it. And that's why intentionally, when we look at CSEA and classified, we've identified both of those as a week because you have an option on those to make sure that both of them are getting recognized for the week. Yeah.
Thank you for the right answer. Any more discussion? No? Please vote. Item 14.7 is a 5-0 vote. Item 14.8 is another action item, personnel resolution number 27 for the 1819 proclamation of May 8th, 2019 as National School Nurse Day. Is there a motion? Wow. All right, Mr. Nelson, second? Second? All right, Mr. Stafford? Any discussion?
Nurses and teachers get the same day, huh?
Yeah, but nurses have more patience.
Don't laugh.
Don't.
Any more discussion, gentlemen? No? Please vote. I'm trying to move on. Please vote. All right, item 14.8 is a 5-0 vote. Catch up. Item 14.9 is an action item, curriculum approval of master software license subscription and services agreement with, I do not know how to pronounce that.
Who knew it?
Hanuit. Who knew it? Funded through local control accountability plan, supplemental concentration funds in the amount of $240,676, not the general fund. Did I quote that right? Yeah.
So
Is there a
moved.
motion? Dr. Rao? Mr. Nielsen? Any discussion?
Yes, I have one quick question. I mean, it says master software license. What exactly does this software cover, and what do we benefit from it?
It's a data visualization software, and basically the company comes in, all the screens that you see when we come and present our data. This company's coming in to replace, currently we have Tableau, but this company's going to take it to the next level in terms of all our goals for LCAP. They also do early warning signs for every single kid, so all of our students will have a specific data profile that we can pull from, and they'll identify kids on early warning signs. So for attendance, suspensions, any kid that's showing in red, they'll show those signs for us, and we'll be able to pull that information. And also the social emotional learning piece is built into the system they're bringing in as well.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Please vote. Item 14.9 is a 5-0 vote. Item 14.10 is another action item, building and grounds, approval of the construction management services agreement between the Paris Union High School District and Paul C. Miller Construction Incorporated for the California Military Institute Gymnasium and Parking Lot Student Drop-Off Expansion Project, funded through the various facility funds in the amount of $1,474,000 based on the estimated cost of construction, not the general fund. Is there a motion? Mr. Nelson, Mr. Stafford, any discussion?
I have a quick question. If we approve this tonight, how quickly will they get started, and about what's the timeline for the gym to be completed?
So upon approval tonight, the project would start June 20th. That's real critical because, as you recall, we're also working with the city to widen A Street and change our student drop-off and pickup areas, expand the parking lot. So there's not really a good time to do that when school's in session, so it needs to be done over the summer. 18 months? 18 to 20 months for the construction duration for the gymnasium.
So the gymnasium will take 18 months, but the actual student drop-off center
Oh,
will
over
be
the
done
summer.
by the end of
Yes.
summer, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
for the most part.
For the most part,
I
okay.
put
But
that
it will be functionable but for the
we
at the
will
end
have
of the
no
summer.
choice.
Okay.
Some of it we're at, tied our hands, with the city, but they're great. City of Paris and City of Menifee are great working partners.
Yeah, I get that why you want to start, but is it going to be
Yes.
usable by the
Yeah,
beginning
they're
of the new
focusing
school
their
year?
efforts there
Okay.
at the start
Okay.
of the onset of the project.
The asterisk, just to jump in real quick, the asterisk there is the city, so the city has to widen A Street in front of the campus. So it'll be coordinated with the city and when that happens, so if we start work on the parent drop off this summer, it has to be ready for August.
And that was my concern. I just wanted to make sure it was usable for the beginning of school year.
And I know kind of the X factor there too is the off-site plans, the street plans being ready and approved by the city. So they're still working on those, so we're waiting for those to get in.
Do we anticipate the plans being ready for the June 20th begin?
Well, the plans for the gym will be ready, the street plans, are tied to that.
Yeah.
We just don't have a date for those yet.
Is there a contingency plan if the city cannot follow through right away?
Well, we will start the gym, and if the street plans aren't ready to go this summer, we will do that work next summer.
Okay, nice. Good answer, actually.
Just,
Yeah, we don't want to start school without, parent drop-off areas, so.
Right?
That would, right.
Any more discussion?
Hector, on this one, it's you, Candace, and Grant that are over the construction company? I know it comes under you, Hector, I know.
Yeah, Hector's ultimately responsible. On the
Okay.
board agenda item, it was submitted by Hector, approved by me, and then by Grant in the actual contract documents. In terms of managing the day-to-day, it spells out Hector, contractual stuff is me, and then Art's kind of our fallback if, one of us isn't available.
Okay,
So.
just to be clear, okay.
Any more discussion? Nope. Please vote. Item 1410 is a 5-0 vote. Item 1411 is another action item. Business resolution number 20 for 1819, resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Paris Union High School District authorizing the issuance of Paris Union High School District Riverside County, California election of 2018 general obligation bonds, Series A, and actions related thereto. Is there a motion?
Second.
Mr. Freeman and Mr. Nelson. Any discussion? No.
Second.
All
All
the
at
bonds,
once?
all at once.
All the bonds, all at once. This is the final action of all the presentations you've heard of Measure W. Yes, thank you.
Well, this is not the last series for Measure T.
No, this specifically relates to the 2018 Measure W election. Yes. Yeah, you had the first reading of this last month, and lots of presentations over the last couple months. Yeah. But Scott and Kerrigan are here if you'd like.
I appreciate you guys, but that's okay. But I just want to make sure everybody knows this is all the bonds for Measure W, all at once.
As promised to the community. Yes. Last month and before.
Yeah.
It was about an hour and a half long.
Here we go again.
If you really want information, go talk to them later. It's okay.
Any more discussion? Nope. Please vote. Exactly. Item 1411 is a 5-0 vote. Item 1412 is another action item, business resolution number 21 for the 1819 authorization to encumber funds for 2019 and 20 fiscal year. Is there a motion?
So move.
Dr. Rao, Mr. Nielsen, any discussion? None? Please vote. Oh, okay.
What kind of funds are they encumbering?
Oh, technically any of the funds of the district. This is something we do this every year, as does every school district that's under the RCOE. I'm talking with my hands. RCOE umbrella to allow us to, what encumber funds means is draw purchase orders, which you then see on your report of purchases. If you think of the alternative, if this were not approved, we would have to wait until July 1st to begin issuing purchase orders, and that doesn't work in the day-to-day operations, of the district. If we think about, M&O as an example, they've got to have purchase orders to be able
absolutely.
to, maintain and repair things. That's just one example. We got to be able to order food for our students, for our summer programs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more discussion? Please vote. Item 1412 is a 5-0 vote. Item 14.3 is another action item, business resolution number 22 for the 1819 resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Paris Union High School District authorizing the execution and delivery of documents related to the sale and delivery of Paris Union High School District 2019 certificates of participation, school financing project, and authorizing the directing certain actions in connection therewith. Is there a motion? Mr. Nielsen,
Second.
Dr. Rao. Any discussion?
Yep, these are the COPs that are being paid by the CFDs. Yes. And
more
just a comment, you'll have a very similar agenda item on your Capital Facilities Corporation. That's the other part to this transaction. Or we can have a presentation.
Any more discussion?
I did spoil the surprise.
All right, go ahead, please vote. (1413) is a 5-0 vote. Item 1414 is another action item, business consideration of resolution number 23 for the 1819 to deny the proposed petition for Sky's the Limit Charter Academy charter petition. Is there a motion? Mr. Freeman, Mr. Stafford, any discussion? Yes. Go ahead.
All right, first of all, their schedules were very sloppily put together. For example, TK and K would have 80 minutes a day of math. Their lunch, which says 12 to 12:30, is listed as 15 minutes. They're replete with this. You go from 80 minutes in kindergarten and first grade till you get to third grade. All of a sudden, it's down to 45 minutes, and then it's up to fourth grade is 95 minutes. There's no elementary PE. I could go into great detail, but the biggest thing is this strategy of teaching is the least effective of all teaching strategies. And as I went through this with my dissertation. But you started off with Bloom's taxonomy in 1956. It was revised in 2001. Teaching children the method that this is proposed to do is at the very bottom of those pyramids, showing it as the least effective. Additionally, it duplicates services already provided by the district. We have the Scholar Plus program, which has independent study online mixed with having actual face-to-face meetings with their teachers. There is nothing in this application that encourages me to want to approve it. It's written in a very vague terms. Again, it's sloppily written. That's if I was having to subject myself to the math that these people don't even know that the difference between 12 and 12:30 is 30 minutes, not 15. and that you're going to subject TK students to 80 minutes of math. That's absurd. Then you drop down to about half that in third grade with 45 minutes, and all of a sudden you're doubling that. This application is replete with those kinds of inconsistencies, poor planning. And as I've said before, with this type of curriculum, with this type of strategy teaching, I went through this as a kid. And I'll tell you right now, I will not vote to subject young children or older children or any children to this type of teaching strategy. It does not prepare them for anything properly. That's all I have to say.
Any more discussion?
Just to be clear, if we vote yes on this, we are actually voting yes to deny the proposed plan. Correct.
Yeah, that's our staff recommendation based on the legal review. There were many elements, and I'm sure you saw in the resolution, that in addition to Dr. Freeman's comments. But the recommendation is to vote yes to deny the charter resolution.
I just want to make sure everybody knew a yes vote would be the
Vote yes or no.
And the petitioners were in contact with me this morning, just so you're aware. They knew it was going to be recommended by us to you to deny. They wanted to know if they needed to be here tonight or if they could, so to speak, sit this one out. They wanted to know the process if they were to resubmit, and so we walked through that, what the appeal process looks like, and so forth. So we may see this again, we may not. I don't know.
I've dealt with this twice before on the other board. And both times it was appealed to the county, and both times it was denied. But if the county chooses to approve it on appeal, then that's their baby.
Yes, they become the chartering organization in that case.
Any more discussion? Please vote. Item 1414 is a 5-0 vote. It was denied. Item 15.1 is an information item, business revolving cash report. Item 15.2 is an information item, board policy, series 6000. Item 16.1 is another action item, closed session if necessary.
Not necessary this evening.
Thank you. Is it, so we move on? Item 18.1 is an action item, discipline board review of discipline matters. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Freeman, Dr. Rao. Any discussion? Please vote. Item 18.1 is a 5-0 vote. Item 19.1, other items by the superintendent.
Nothing else this evening.
Thank you. Item 20.1, other items by the Board of Trustees. Dr. Rao? Mr. Nielsen? Mr. Freeman?
Nothing.
Mr. Stafford? Mr. Garcia? No? I talked to myself. Item 21.1 is an action item, adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Freeman and Mr. Nelson. Any discussion?
Yeah, I think we need a second.
Please vote. Yeah. Item 21.1, adjournment of the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for April 17, 2018. Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. I know, but I have to end this.
Don't go too far with that.
I have to end this meeting. And we're ending this meeting at 7:35.
Oh, yeah. So I was going to have an early evening.
Okay. And now we enter capital facilities. join the meeting, please, for capital facilities? Keep going. So I call to order there. Okay. Sorry, guys. Item 2.1, at this time, I would like to call order of the Paris Valley Schools Capital Facilities Corporation Board meeting to order at 7:36. Item 3.1, invitation to address the Board of Directors, agendized and non-agendized items.
There are no submissions.
Thank you. Item 4.1, general functions. Minutes of the Paris Valley Schools Capital Facilities Corporation meetings of December 12, 2018. Is there a motion? Mr. Nielsen, Mr. Freeman, any discussion? None at this time? Please vote. Item 4.1 is a 5-0 vote. Item 4.2 is an action item, Business Resolution 1 for 1819, resolution of the Board of Directors of the Paris Valley Schools Capital Facilities Corporation approving the execution and delivery of documents in connection with the sale and delivery of the Paris Union High School District 2019 certificates of participation school financing project in principal amount not to exceed $45 million and authorizing and directing certain actions in connection therewith.
Second.
Mr. Nielsen, Dr. Rao, any discussion? We're covered? All right, please vote.
I will add if I can.
Yes.
So this is your last action item for this series of, or part of our facilities financing plan. We plan to be back talking to you about this in very, very early 2020. As we issue hopefully the last series of Series C of Measure T from 2012. And only because I got a very informative text from our financial advisor in the audience with a gentle nudge. You probably read in the weekly update that we made presentations to 2 rating agencies. Last week we got the report back from Standard & Poor's today with an A+ credit rating for the GO bonds and an A, which is generally 1 level lower. For the COPs, and we've been working incredibly hard. Our finance team, yeah, they're all happy. To put that, we spent a lot of, saying a lot of hours doesn't even do it justice. A lot of days, putting that together, and it was fruitful. So that's.
So as you're talking, I'm giving these gentlemen a thumbs up, but they're pointing back at you.
It's
so
a team
kudos
effort.
to everyone.
We've got a great team, really great, and
Awesome.
they work hard on your behalf and our stakeholders' behalf to make sure that we're getting the best value for our taxpayer dollars. It's something we're all very proud of.
Good job to everyone. Any more discussion? No? Please vote. I know, we're all fighting it. Please vote. Item 4.2 is a 5-0 vote. Oh, look at that.
Second.
Point of order. Item 5.1 is adjournment. Is there a motion? Mr. Nelson and Mr. Freeman. Any discussion? None? Please vote. Item 5.1 is a 5-0 vote, and we adjourn at 7:40.